Hi, it's Jenny here from the A to Z of Emotional Health Online Library. I'm here with Patrina Mack. I'm really delighted that you've joined me for a conversation. Patrina is CEO of an organization called You Rock. Patrina, would you like to tell us about your work? As you know, my passion is about helping people manage their emotions, and I know that you do a lot of work in this area.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm pleased to be here. You Rock is the creator of an emotional resiliency app called KBro. It's available for free for adolescents in the iTunes Store, Google Play Store, and on the Kindle in the Amazon App Store. Our goal is really to help kids build their emotional wellness. We're focused on the positive rather than the negative, and we're also focused on prevention. We're hoping to help kids learn how to practice good emotional self-care so they don't end up developing anxiety or depression.
That is pretty awesome, I have to say. It's really interesting. I had a conversation just literally a few days ago with an English therapist. We went deep in conversation, and he works with young people, and he was just saying he really struggles to find resources that he can refer young people to. And always the key, the center point of the work that he's doing with them, regardless of what's going on in their lives, in their real circumstances, they're really struggling to manage their emotions and struggling to understand their emotions positively, to develop that resilience. And of course, it then has a knock-on effect. So, I mean, this sounds fabulous. And the fact that it's also available free, I think is a real gift. Thank you.
Well, what we know is that 80% of the US population is not in an optimal state of mental health, which means that oftentimes parents aren't the resources we wish they were to teach their children these skills. And especially as kids enter adolescence and start that journey to adulthood, as they pull away from their parents to assert their own individual self, they're looking at resources beyond their parents to really help navigate this on their own. Our goal is to be that resource for children so that they can get help through evidence-based activities and also through an anonymous peer sharing site, but also to help ultimately facilitate a better parent-child engagement so that kids return back to their parents and connect with them and use them as the resource that the parents want to be, if the parents are actually able to do that. Unfortunately, we know that some children are dealing with significant abuse in the home, and so in that case, we redirect them to external resources that can get them the help that they need.
Right. So in a way, you're also offering I suppose an element of what you offer is also almost like a referral service. You're pointing them in the right direction for the right kind of help, depending on what they're struggling with.
When they get the results of playing the game, they get an Am I OK index score. And hopefully most kids are in the I am OK range, but we also have better than OK and not OK. And when kids fall into the not OK range, the app automatically alerts them that they should seek support outside of the app. And in some cases, it's serious enough that we recommend that they reach out to a suicide prevention line or a rape crisis line.
Okay, right, brilliant. So you've really, really underpinned what you're doing with some real solid kind of backup. I find it really interesting because I come across people who I think do actually start to initiate things in the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody comes into their organization, they don't necessarily know where to go beyond that if they really, really are struggling. I mean, the other thing I hear, which is lovely, is in a sense, you're kind of offering an element of emotional education. And I just think we know emotional literacy is actually it's relatively new in terms of our awareness of its importance, which means that loads and loads of parents had parents before them and grandparents before them for whom there was no opportunity to learn an emotional language, to be emotionally literate. It was kind of denied them by the social and cultural world they were in. I think it's fabulous when kids start to pick up on stuff and go home and talk to their grown-ups, you know, because it just ripples out from the bottom upwards. I mean, I think it's amazing when that happens.
Well, I think most parents, especially those of a certain older generation, ruled by kids should be seen and not heard. There's an element of control to parenting.
Yeah.
And I think where things are headed is to really be more connected and emotionally engaged with children, which inspires greater internal motivation for kids to be their best selves. But just to point out your example there, my son will regularly tell me if I'm getting upset that, are you mad at me or are you taking your anger out on me? And I will say, you are right. I'm just upset and I'm taking it out of you, and that's not fair. So I'm very proud of him that he's come that far to recognize that.
Isn't it fabulous? I think that's a lovely example. Thank you for sharing it, because I just think as well, it shows how important it is that we as parents are really open to receiving that from our kids. It's really interesting. I have 3 girls and they are really highly emotionally literate, and they are the first to pick up, but in a really lovely way. I think it's fabulous when you can see that they can learn from our mistakes, and they're a step ahead of us, because but part of that is because we are available to receive that information and to talk it through with them. I mean, it's really flourishing.
Yes.
And I have a really interesting little story to add to that, which is my own mum, who is 86, who came very much from a generation of seen and not heard people. At the age of heading for 60, she decided to do a counselling course. And I never would have thought I would have had the level of emotional conversation that I have with her back then, but now I do. And it's just extraordinary, the richness in our relationship, and it's an emotional richness that's come from both of us, actually, from her as well as from me. But isn't it fabulous when we can cross those generations and kind of meet in that space?
Yeah, it is. I think that's where we're headed, and sort of the literally one step up the ladder towards in Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization, self-realization, and with that comes a deeper connectedness to other humans in our lives.
Absolutely. Which is really what it's all about. And you know, if we look at I know loneliness, for example, is a massive, it's reaching epidemic proportions both in the UK and in the States, I think. So we really do need to address this at a core level. Thank you so much for coming and talking. Is there anything else before we begin to wind up that you'd like to say about the different things that your organization does?
Well, we offer also a parent subscription such that parents can get a weekly update on how their child is doing. And also they would get an alert if there was any cause for concern. So that's available on our urockapps.com website. And then at the end of the summer, we will be rolling out the happiness coach based on chatbot technology, so that we can reach out to kids when they're expressing some really negative emotions and start to engage with them a little deeper. And in doing so, actually have more clarity about how to guide them to the resources that they need.
Right, that's fabulous. You really are investing a huge amount of work in helping people. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I just think this is so needed, and the more that we each do, the better. So Patrina, thank you so much for joining me. Just to let anyone know, if they've logged in and they're listening to this conversation, that the links to Patrina's resources will all be in the resources page of the library, and this conversation will also be on YouTube, so people will be able to access it that way. And we will make sure all of the links are in the writing below, so hopefully people can find you quite easily and follow through. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me today.
You're really welcome.